I viewed porn as a substitute for me, and it wasn't a substitute for me. It was a substitute for his own ability to soothe himself. Hello, and welcome to Sex, Love, and Soul. I'm Mary Knight. I am so glad that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about low sex marriages and porn and how they go together. So I was in a low sex marriage, and the lack of desire was not coming from me. And to be clear, this is not my current husband. This is an ex-husband. Okay, we met in 1999, and I had just started working for an escort service. I was working as a private dancer, and for those of you who watch all my videos, I'm sorry for the repetition here. A private dancer is basically, I was a stripper, but I went to men's homes and hotel rooms. And I would give lap dances, I would do nude dances, nude modeling, lingerie modeling. I would give them sensual rub downs. At this time, I wasn't even offering happy endings. It would be several months before I started to do that. As soon as we met and we were talking, I told him, hey, this is what I do. I mean, there was no shame in my game. I felt completely fine with what I was doing. I was making a good living. I was able to spend time with my kids. I was able to support my kids. And that's what mattered the most to me. Okay, I'm calming down here a little bit. This is a big story. This is a big thing for me to share. He told me right away that he was the owner of an adult entertainment guide, and he would review porn movies, he would interview porn stars, he would go out and rate and review all the strip clubs, all the strippers, interview them, pimps, modeling studios, massage parlors, all this different kind of stuff. And they all advertised in his magazine, and so he knew everybody. He knew the whole scene. So he understood that I was not a full-service escort, because there were plenty of women at that time that were doing just what I was doing, because this was before the internet was what it was, where now I guess it would be like you'd see a cam girl. And back then, men would have to hire you to come live in person to their houses. So it's the same concept. He was totally okay with what I did. He had actually had some problems with women wanting to date him because of what he did. So it was this little match made in heaven. It was a few weeks after our meeting that we had sex for the first time, and it was incredible. It really was. It rocked my world. It took me another few weeks to realize, oh, we have really different sex drives. And it all came to light when we went to the AVN Awards. This is the Adult Video News Awards, the porno awards. He invited me to go, and I said, I don't want to go. I'm not into porn. I'm not interested in being involved in some weird orgy or sex thing, sex party, sex weirdos. He's like, no, it's not like that at all. It's a lot of fun. Everyone's really nice. He said a lot of the women are like you. They're single moms. They just want to make the money and hang out with their kids. They also happen to really like sex, and they're these sexy women. They're so fun to hang out with. Come on, let's go. I agreed, and we went. And he was right. It was so much fun. We had a blast. And it was fun for me because I was meeting all these porn stars, and I had no idea who anybody was. I had my picture taken with every porn star that was popular in 1999. So the first night that we were there, we had sex. It was so fun. It was great. And then the second night, he didn't make a move on me, so I made a move on him. And he was like, oh, I'm kind of tired. And I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? We're here at this porno convention with all this hotness going on around us, and you don't want to have sex? And it hurt my feelings. It did. And part of the reason that I was annoyed by that too is that at the parties we were going to, which were these exclusive parties that he got invited to because he knew everybody and he had a press pass, I was getting to meet, and I'm talking to all these people, and these male porn stars are coming over and talking to me and I guess kind of flirting with me and hitting on me because I didn't look like the other women who were there. I was a no makeup kind of gal. I get tarted up for these videos so I don't look washed out. But I don't go around like that. I had a short little black bob hair. I was very pale and had a lot of tattoos, and I was super athletic. So I looked a lot different than a lot of the women. I know that's why the men are coming over and talking to me. And so that was kind of fun for me, little ego boost. But I noticed he would come over and he would act all territorial with me. And it turned me off because it came across as really insecure because I was there with him. I was into him. I wasn't going to go off with some porn star dude. And he would make some disparaging remarks about their penises and whatnot because he had seen them all in the videos. So, weird thing to think about and say now. But back to, I'm lying there in bed and I just was thinking, wow, we've only been dating a matter of weeks and we're already here. So the next morning, when we were up and around, I said something to him. And I said, is it because I don't look like these women and that's what you really want? And he was like, oh God, no. No, 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 no. Not at all. I am so into your look and into your body. You're actually my ideal. He shared with me that over the past few years, his sex drive had really dropped off, and he was only 31. And he blamed it on the constant exposure to all the sexual images and the photographs, the movies, and then he wasn't just watching porn movies, he was then having to write reviews about the porn movies. So he constantly just had this steady stream of exposure to all this kind of stuff. And he said because he was really wanted to pursue a relationship with me, that he was only going to watch porn if it was absolutely necessary for his job. And as you might well imagine, that is not what ended up happening, and porn became a sore spot for the remainder of our relationship. I felt like such a square because here I am, a sex worker, and yet I'm having these, and I have a problem with porn. It just seemed kind of contradictory to me, but at the same time, I'm allowed to like what I like, want what I want. The main problem I had with it is because our sex life was not what I wanted it to be, and I looked at porn as a substitute for me. And we went on and we had this amazing weekend. And then months later, we're still dating. We're still experiencing this sexual incompatibility. And I was so angry and so frustrated with him. There were other things going on in our relationship too. He ended up losing his magazine. I was making plenty of money. I remember I even paid for some of the printing charges for his magazine one time. I didn't mind doing any of that because I was falling in love with him and I wanted to help him out. But it became a pattern in our relationship where he was underemployed or unemployed and I was the breadwinner. This sounds so stereotypical. I could not believe that I became one of those women. I don't look back on this time in my life with a lot of pride because of the way that I handled our relationship. Because we weren't having sex as often as I thought we should, I would complain about our not having sex constantly. And all you men know how a woman complaining to you about anything is such a turn on, right? So especially my complaining to him about sex, I was just like driving any desire he had straight into the ground, right? I was being very disrespectful the way that I spoke to him about all kinds of things because my frustration and my anger was just always just there. And it never occurred to me to just break up with him if we're not sexually compatible and he can't hold down a job. What am I doing? I always looked at relationships as a problem to solve. And it was my job to solve this because, after all, we were in love, and love conquers all. Love triumphs over everything, even if I was absolutely miserable and had become this emasculating shrew. So I was in my masculine energy, so far over in my masculine energy with the controlling, and of course being the breadwinner. I called all the shots. And the thing was, though, he was happy to let me do that. And I learned that was how his relationships were with his exes too. They made all the money He just kind of drank, played video games, would gamble occasionally, just like, what the, I mean, although he was a really good stepdad to my kids. They loved him. He was really good to them. They had fun, and they're even still in touch with him. We've been divorced like 20 years now. They're still in touch with him. So that's good. So that was one of the reasons that I married him too, and that I kind of kept him around, is because he made the kids really happy. He had all of these escapes. And at the time, and up until very recently actually, I looked at all of those as just escapes, that he was so freaking miserable that he just needed to get the hell out of where he was, and that he was such a coward and he was so weak and so lazy that he was not willing to face reality. That's how I looked at him, and that's how I talked to him. So there was no way in hell we were going to ever have any kind of decent sex life. Right? I'm not taking all the blame, because of course these habits, these things, these escapes that he was doing, he was well entrenched in all of that behavior way before he met me. But our dynamic together just exacerbated all of that. He brought out all the control freak in me, and I brought out all the weak little boy, passive, scared person in him. I like how I gave him a lot more negative adjectives than I gave myself. But in our dynamic, I was in survival mode 24/7 without even knowing it. I didn't know. It would take some time before I was able to see that. Even though he didn't cause my behaving like this and I didn't cause his behaving like that, when we came together, all we did was encourage each other subconsciously, right, to keep that shitty behavior that was keeping us apart. So I was in no way providing sanctuary at home, no place for him to go and rest and be himself, and for him to just relax so that he could feel confident and secure and safe enough with me to open his heart. I was not capable of providing that. And so there was no way, I think that was a fruit fly. There was no way that we were ever going to have the kind of closeness and connection and anything to sustain this relationship. And so if he was so in his feminine energy, why was I still wanting to have sex with him? Well, there were two interesting things going on here. One was the only time that he was dominant and masculine with me was in the bedroom. And it was incredible. And I reveled in that. That's why I kept wanting that. But of course, he didn't want it from me because I was in my masculine energy and he wasn't attracted to men. And also because I was emasculating him. I was disrespectful. I was all these terrible things that you hear about, that you hear that women are behaving like this and that feel entitled to a man behaving a certain way just because you're married. Well, I did feel that way. I felt like, hey, mofo, we're married. You don't want me having sex with anybody else, but yet you're not having sex with me. That's unfair. Blah, 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 blah. And it's not that I was wrong. It's that my approach was all wrong. What ended up happening, and this is the interesting point that I want to make, that some of y'all have expressed to me, that you have felt this way. You haven't said it like this, but it was no longer about having sex and being connected with him sexually. It was because I was right. That's how I felt. I deserved sex from him. He was my husband. Who does he think he is denying me sex? And I'm smiling because that's a wild thing to say. Because even though it's been so long ago, and now my husband and I have a healthy relationship, the husband I'm with now, we've been together 10 years, it took me a long time to realize what I was doing, because that was not the only relationship that I had been in that had been low sex with men. I was attracting these men that were these kind of, I don't know, beta boys. I was attracting those kinds of men because I could control them. And also because I was uncomfortable because I was a sex worker, because I eventually did start having sex with clients. And I was okay with what I was doing, but I didn't understand how a man could be okay that his woman was doing that. And that was part of the dynamic that was going on in my relationship with my ex-husband. I was like, how is it okay with you that I'm going to strangers' hotel rooms? I'm naked with a naked strange man. How is that okay with you? And I think in part it was because of the money, right? I was making money. If he kept his mouth shut, then he could just do whatever he wanted. Anyway, I think that topic deserves its own video because it's a very interesting dynamic, and I can talk about other women that I knew that were in that dynamic. So the more I talk, and I rehearsed this too. I almost used a teleprompter, but I didn't want to. I could go, at this point, I could go off into 3 different areas. I'm not going to. I will create other videos for that. But here's what ended up happening. We had a business together. We were encouraged by certain municipal authorities to shut down. We were encouraged by our attorney to close up shop and move, leave the city. So we did. I was so stressed out during this time. We were both like incredibly stressed out because we were afraid we're going to get arrested. So we left and we moved to Austin. And that's how I ended up moving to Austin. And I think that's why I never have really liked Austin. Because unlike everybody else who moves here, I was not coming to Austin. I was going away from Houston. We found this cute little house in Austin. I had gotten a job as a stripper. I wasn't thrilled to be stripping again, but it was fine. It was Austin. Austin has some very nice clubs. I was working at Perfect 10. Shout out to Perfect 10. That was a nice club. The managers were really nice there. The girls were really nice there too. And let's see. So the climax, well, you know what? I'm not going to use the word climax because in this part of my marriage story, it didn't really apply. I'll say crescendo of our marriage, the beginning of the end, was I was in the garage one afternoon doing some unpacking. I was picking up the boxes, moving them in the house, opening them up, unpacking the house. I go in the garage and I see that this box is untaped. And I was like, oh, weird, okay. I opened it up to see what was inside. And I shrieked. Absolutely fucking shrieked. My ex came running into the garage and was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I just looked up at him and I took the box and I turned it upside down, dumped it on the garage floor. And he turned 5 shades of pale because it was a box of porn. There were even some VHS tapes in there, a couple of DVDs. And I started screaming at him. Is this what you're doing when I'm at work? Is this why when I come home from work, you don't go to bed with me? Is this why over all these years, you've never had energy for me? I was screaming though. And I just brushed past him really roughly. And he was like, no, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. And a few weeks after that, he left. He left me. He left me because I completely withdrew from him. I was no longer checking in on him, asking him, hey, how you doing? All that caretaking shit that I had been doing, that enabling, that mothering that I had been doing with him, I just stopped. And I just stopped taking care of him, stopped making sure he had everything. I just fucking stopped all of it. So the way I see it, I stopped taking care of him and he left me. And that, my friends, is a story of how porn ruined my marriage. I don't blame the porn for ruining my marriage. That was one of his many escapes. Porn for a lot of men is a source of comfort. It's not necessarily that you're wanting to view this porn because you want to have an orgasm. It's because it's a source of comfort for you. That's what it is. And in our marriage, my ex had no comfort. In his life, he had no comfort, right? Because it was all inside of him. Comfort comes from within. It does not come from without. And because we didn't have an emotional connection, and because I certainly was not that woman back then, he couldn't come to me and talk to me and open his heart. And I know that's how a lot of men feel who watch porn. And for me, I viewed porn as a substitute for me, and it wasn't a substitute for me. It was a substitute for his own ability to soothe himself, to be comfortable in his own skin, in his own life. And he also was like that with alcohol. Now, when we met, he was a heavy drinker, but I'm not. I would go out and drink socially, and I'm not saying we didn't drink a lot at times, because we did, but I didn't have booze in the house. I had kids. I'm not going to have booze in the house. And so there was no drinking at home. So he cut way back on his drinking. And so I think that's why he got into video games with the kids. He'd play video games with the kids. I can see that now, that he was looking for comfort. I was looking for comfort from him. Not just necessarily the sex, but just being close to someone, snuggling on the couch. And I wasn't getting that from him. I was getting it from strangers, though. Working for an escort service, you're damn right. I was getting it from strangers. And then being angry with him for not being the man that I wanted him to be, which was a theme in my life. I've mentioned it in another video. So when y'all say that you are in a low-sex marriage, or you were in one, or that you're experiencing that, I know how that feels. I get it. And it sucks. And there's more going on than just the lack of sex, of course, right? And that's why men turn to escorts. They think that it's the sex they want, but actually they're wanting the companionship, to be desired by a woman, to be valued and respected and treated well by a woman. That's what escorts can provide so many men. If you are questioning your bond with a sex worker, I'm available for coaching with that. If you're wanting to talk to me about your low-sex marriage and some things that maybe you could do, or to help you get your head around what's going on, I'm available for coaching on that as well. You can find information about that at sexloveandsoulcoaching.com. Also email me, mary@sexloveandsoul.com. I love hearing from y'all. I have a couple of books for sale. I'll have links to those in the show notes. You can find them sexloveandsoul.com. One of them is on Amazon, but I'll have links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.